Kylie Goslin,
Here.
Salem Mascara Bruno,
Here.
Lisa Tepper Bates, Greg Ugalde.
Here.
I also wanted to mention that because we've moved mortgage committee to Tuesdays at 1 o'clock, I think we have a couple of other board members who RSVP'd and may be here. I think Jerry was one of them.
I'm
here. I'm here.
Oh, good.
I don't know if that would, I don't know if the minute's supposed to reflect that or not. I'm just gonna listen.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, you're more than welcome to ask a question. You just can't vote. But you can talk, I think, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so ask away if you have any. Anybody else attending that's not usual, not a member of the committee or of the board, of the staff? See, I don't know how we would know who's on and who's not, but Shelley, you might be able to tell.
Yes, Lisa Tepper Bates just joined also. I think that's it.
Okay, great. Well, I think we have everyone then, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, Happy New Year. Welcome back. It always feels like such a long time between the November meeting and the January meeting, but happy to hear everyone's back. So we have a pretty full agenda, so we might as well get started. First on the agenda is the resolution regarding financing for Armstrong Court Phase 3 in Greenwich, and I believe Maura is going to present it to us.
That is correct. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Armstrong Court Phase 3 Development LP is seeking approval of a taxable bond first leasehold permanent mortgage loan of up to $4,650,000. The term will be for 35 years, fully amortizing over that term with an interest rate of up to 5.6%. The interest rate will be locked at the closing of the construction loan. The plan is to have it convert and fund within 24 months. However, there is an extension feature which will allow that date to extend for up to 6 months at a fee of $5,000 per month. Armstrong Court was originally constructed in 1951 as part of the state moderate rental program. It has 6 buildings, currently has 6 buildings and 144 units. The overall redevelopment is going to be a multi-phase approach. The first phase, which was the new construction of 18 new townhomes, is completed and is 100% occupied. The second phase, which closed in March of 2021, consists of the gut substantial rehab of 3 buildings, buildings 1, 3, and 6. When completed, it'll contain 42 units. That construction is currently at 53% complete. When the whole redevelopment is complete, Armstrong redevelopment will have 150 total units. So that's an increase of 6 units in a town where only 5.35% of this housing stock is affordable. Subject of this financing proposal is Armstrong Court Phase 3. And that's just the gut substantial rehab of 1 building, building 2. The unit mix of Phase 3 is 36 2-bedrooms and 6 3-bedrooms. The targeted income tiers are 11 units at less than 25% AMI, 17 units at less than 50% AMI, and 14 units at less than 60% AMI. The Housing Authority has committed 12 vouchers, project-based vouchers, and those will assist the 11 households at the 25% AMI and 1 of the households at the 50% AMI level. The gut rehab of the existing building is necessary for a variety of reasons, including lack of handicap access, energy inefficiency, lack of insulation, inefficient windows, roofs are in poor condition, and overall, the buildings are not up. The redevelopment will bring the buildings up to building code and up-to-date building code and energy codes. The scope includes the complete demo of the entire interior, floors, ceilings, kitchens, baths, walls, electrical systems, heating systems, plumbing systems. There'll be new roofs, windows, And they will have obviously all new interiors. The floor plan is larger because they're enclosing the balconies, and they're going to make a grand room instead of having the kitchen and living room separated out. Obviously, they'll have new electrical systems. They'll be energy code compliant, and they'll have new windows. 23% of the units will be ADA accessible or adaptable units, and the 3 bedrooms will have a second bath. There's a new exterior shell with siding and stone veneer and pitched roofs instead of flat. The total development cost for all this is $21,163,553. The financing is anticipated with DOH subordinate financing, 9% LIHTC credits, which were approved by the board in March of 2020. The RBC Community Investments is the syndicator, and the Bank of New York Mellon is the construction lender. CHFA is the permanent takeout lender. There's also seller financing. The Housing Authority is committing reserves. There's energy incentives from Eversource and a deferred developer fee. The development team consists of the Housing Authority of the Town of Greenwich. They're the sponsor and developer here. They were established in 1948 and basically are the leading provider of affordable housing in Greenwich. They manage over 1,200 units. Since 2006, the Housing Authority has invested in new construction and capital improvements of over $85 million, which was planned, financed, and executed by the Housing Authority and its employees. The Housing Authority is also the property manager here. They will continue to be the property manager, and there is no compliance issues with any program requirements with the Housing Authority at this point in time, as far as property management is concerned, or any other thing as far as that is concerned. The development team also includes Gitas Architects and Viking Construction as the general contractor. This is the same team that is working on phase 2 at the moment. Phase 2 is on budget and on time. However, there were undisclosed conditions that were discovered when the exterior skin was removed. And this discovery, along with COVID cost increases, has caused the contingency on phase 2 to be almost extinguished. So right now we're looking at what they think future costs will be and making sure that there's no gap in that deal. A review of CHFA eligibility policy, including the HUD debarment list and D&B reports, have been reviewed and no concerns are noted. Additionally, the applicant nor its affiliates have any HTCC or LIHTC compliance issue. The development is located in the southwest portion of Greenwich. Town of Greenwich has made improvements near the site. They've made road improvements. They've actually constructed a bus shelter right at the property. The park nearest the property has received a new swimming pool and playground, and the nearby elementary and middle schools have been modernized. The bus stop at the property has daily continuous service to shopping centers in Stamford and downtown Stamford, downtown Greenwich, Portchester, New York. And the next stop on the bus route is at the Greenwich Greenwich Railroad Station, which has service to New York City and obviously various towns and cities in Connecticut. As I said, the total development cost is $21,163,553. Construction costs are $13,681,170, or $325,742 per unit. The proposed financing structure includes approximately $10,615,000 in 9% LIHTC equity, up to $4,650,000 in CHFA taxable bonds, a GP loan of $1.8 million, up to $4 million in DOH funds, $100,000 in property reserves, $89,000 in energy rebates, and a deferred developer fee of approximately $87,000. All tenants in this phase need to be relocated. Currently, they're up to 23 tenants they've relocated. The plan is to move the remaining tenants into phase 2 is being completed as building by building, and they're hoping to move phase 3 tenants into phase 2 as the buildings are completed. If that doesn't fully work out, they will house them either on any vacant units on site or another housing authority property until phase 3 is complete. but no existing resident will be permanently displaced. And the units have been made affordable to all existing residents, either with the vouchers or at the rent levels that they can afford. As I previously said, Armstrong Court is a transit-oriented location with the bus stop right at the property. The plans and specs here have been reviewed and deemed acceptable by CHFA Tech Services. They've also been reviewed by DOH Tech Services. The environmental reports have been reviewed by an outside LEP. Abatement for several contaminants is contemplated as part of the renovation, and the required environmental documents will be included in the GC contract. The assessor of the town of Greenwich has agreed to keep the taxes affordable and equal to the pilot amount of 10% of shelter rents. Challenges. The construction costs are higher here than other areas of the state due to wage rates and labor costs for subcontractors. This property, because of the Housing Authority and HUD involvement, is subject to the higher of prevailing wage or Davis-Bacon. And believe it or not, that's done by trade, and one can be higher than the other, which only tends to escalate the cost more. Additional pressures on the construction costs were caused by the reconfiguring of the units, replacing flat roofs with pitch roofs, and the environmental remediation. The design approved by the town as part of the zoning effort here included elements that the Greenwich Architectural Review Board required, and it cannot be modified. And some of those, like that stone veneer, are expensive. So that all added to the additional construction costs. Due to the COVID-19 health crisis, additional considerations will be required. The contractor here is experienced with this and has developed safety and sanitary protocols for all construction workers and oversight personnel. This is a gut rehab, so the buildings will be vacant when construction work commences. Supply chain issues will be addressed by the general contractor right prior to initial closing. So we have the most updated information. While the renovation of existing buildings does pose a risk of unforeseen conditions because phase 2 has already had the skin taken off, and we've seen some, we have priced those conditions into this construction budget. So we're hoping we don't find anything new and different in this phase. The challenges created by COVID seem to be limited to sourcing materials and equipment for renovation and material price increases. We've done the best to price those into the deal, but we're not sure what the future may hold. At construction closing, CHFA will collect a non-refundable forward standby fee and a forward good faith deposit that is refundable upon the CHFA funding. Conditions that must be met prior to CHFA loan funding is stabilization of the property at 100% qualified occupancy and maintenance of a 1.1 debt service coverage on our debt for at least 90 days. The mortgagor will be required to sign a CHFA takeout agreement, which outlines the program terms and conditions for funding, including our commitment for funding at the closing of the construction loan. And the mortgagor is required to provide monthly site visit reports from the project architect during construction and have agreed to do so. There will be no field observer, CHFA field observer. And since there is none, CHFA technical services will periodically visit the site. Any questions?
I have a couple. So we don't provide the construction loan financing, but we are going to provide the permanent. So you talked a little bit about a forward fee, so which seemed sort of light if they're actually buying a 2-year forward rate lock commitment. Is that how it's working?
That's our program at the moment. And so we charge them fees as based on our program.
But the program is based on Hazim going out to the forward futures market and buying a rate lock and passing along the cost.
That I don't know.
Okay, well, it seems like they're paying very little for a 2-year forward rate lock commitment. I would just like to know that we're passing along whatever it costs us to lock in a rate, that we're not just sort of guessing, because it's a pretty big dollar amount. So that would be interesting to find out.
Yeah, I don't believe he's buying a forward or, like a swap or anything like that for any one of these transactions. I think that he's taking into account sort of the cumulative exposure across the entire balance sheet of like, construction loans, permanent loans, kind of where, sort of where our risks are. He is using comps in terms of where other lenders are, and maybe he's using a proxy for where forward rates are today and adjusting appropriately. I believe he's doing an analysis of that sort. I'm not sure that he's doing, he's definitely not doing a forward for every transaction.
Okay.
I know
Okay.
that, but he's
Yeah.
looking at it and pricing it accordingly. So.
Yeah, Hazim is on,
We
so
do have
it is
Hazim, you're
correct.
on.
We're talking about you behind your back.
Yeah.
No, I'm here. Yeah, no,
So-
yeah, agreed. Like, so at the present time, we're not pursuing or entering into any type of a forward agreement. What I did do was to look at what the competition was providing and see what they were charging for a Fannie product. And as you know, in the Fannie world, they do tier their pricing based on the credit risk. So from our standpoint, we view projects that we want to do, not really looking at from, okay, what's your coverage ratio? How much soft debt do you have? So we want to provide them with the optimal cost that we can live with. And based on the yield curve, and again, the way we're doing it is we have the capital to fund it if we needed to do it today. So then the question is, what would be our holding cost? Because until we disperse the funds, we're just earning some type of a reinvestment rate. So the idea for us now is just like when I presented it during the budget, is to ensure that we have the liquidity, but at the same time, we don't want to sit on too much liquidity. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out what would be the ideal return for CHFA, but then at the same time, not trying to burden the project, because if we try to price the rate based on market, then we may accidentally create a gap.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question, and I'll just open it up. The cost is so high for a unit, it almost seems like it would make sense to just build this all from scratch. But I understand, because the land cost isn't even part of the 500,000 per unit, right? Because you said it's a leasehold, so we're not really.
It's a leasehold, correct. The seller is putting in the 1.8 million, which includes supposedly the land price in it, even though, so they're financing that out. But yeah, it's not, it's.
So it's
high.
almost right. Makes anyway, but that's just, I know Greenwich, I mean, I know the cost of everything. It's just seems, when you look at it compared, because we had, 3 other projects that are so much less, but.
The other thing is, I mean, there is environmental remediation here, which would be, even if you did it new, you'd still have to pay for the demo, you'd still have to pay for the environmental remediation.
Right.
So, I mean, that adds to it. It's a 1951 product. Believe me, it needs it.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine though, like demolishing everything except for like what, the one exterior wall.
It's basically the exterior walls they're leaving. I mean, and the foundation.
Right.
I mean, it's basically the cost when they did the phase 1, that was modular construction, and that was the only way that they could mitigate those costs. And of course, that was done before COVID, so the costs were less there, but they were still high. Because
Maura, is this project also doing some site work because of the accessibility, or this is not that one?
yes, no, this has site work because of the accessibility. They also are putting all the utility lines underground because Eversource required that instead of being above ground. So that adds to the cost. And again, those costs would be here on a hilly site. There would still be accessibility issues, and they would still have to put them underground. So I mean, all those things, the utilities underground, all those things add to the cost, and would add to the cost even if it was new construction.
So, and I always looking at the cost of the units, and I'm thinking the same way. Sometimes it's like, we could buy a home, right?
Right.
Building units, But in Greenwich, especially this site, I did walk the site with the developer. It is very tight and it's also very rocky, and they do have to blast rock. So it's a lot of infrastructure. It's no more on the units, but it's on the infrastructure that they also have to build. So we took a very close look at the construction piece.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions?
I just have something to that point. It was interesting because did you mention that it was a comparison between prevailing wage and Davis-Bacon and the higher was chosen?
It has to be the higher. It has to be the higher. So that adds, that's the rule. It has to be the higher of, and it's not just that the whole, and I didn't realize this either. It's not just the whole construction contract can be one or the other. It's by trade. So in Greenwich, the wage rates are higher. There's just no way around it.
Interesting. A lot of good details there, and it seems like all the tenants that need to be displaced during construction are being taken care of either right on that property or other property that the Greenwich Housing Authority has, it sounds like, right?
Yes, that's the plan. They're really trying to keep them on site. Unfortunately, move-outs haven't been what historically has happened in the past. So what they had planned, I'm hoping will come through. That's why they may have to locate some to other housing authority properties. But they're trying to keep them all on site.
Who pays for that though? Will the Greenwich Housing Authority pick up that tab?
Part of that is in the development budget. We only have the moving costs. We do not have the rental costs. So we'd have to take a look at that if that happens. At this point, we're planning to keep them on site. And the moving costs are in the budget.
And I see Wendy has her hand up.
Yeah, one technical point of clarification. Who exactly owns the property? Is there a long-term lease? And how does that work with our financing term and the affordability period?
The housing authority currently owns the land in the buildings. There is a partnership formed that purchases the building, and the housing authority continues to own the land, and that needs to be the way. We've done a lot of structures like this with housing authorities, and they need to stay in control of the land. The ground lease usually is for a term of 99 years. We haven't seen the document here, but we have I believe, and if somebody from legal's on, I believe we have to have a term of at least 85 years. I'm not sure if it's 85 or 90 years, but the ground lease will meet our qualifications, and there's usually little or no ground rent.
And we control when and how that lease is modified?
No, the ground lease is superior to our mortgage, I believe. I don't believe they subordinate to us. I'm almost positive it's.
Well, we don't have a mortgage. We have a leasehold, right?
We have a leasehold mortgage, correct. We have a leasehold mortgage. So we are just mortgaging the buildings. The land stays with the housing authority and is owned by the housing authority. It's the buildings that are owned by the partnership that they are mortgaging. We've done this structure on quite a few housing authority properties, the same structure. But I do believe that we are subordinate, the mortgage is subordinate to the ground lease. However, the ELIC is ahead of everything.
Hey, Maura, it's Rob Hicks. We have there's a long-term ground lease. Our mortgage encumbers the leasehold interest. Our statute requires that the mortgage term be twice, the leasehold term be twice the loan term. So I think Maura said it correctly there, but.
Is there any reason why we're not providing the construction loan? I don't remember about phase 1 and phase 2.
Both on phase 1 and phase 2, we did have the construction and permanent financing. To be honest with you, this is a 9%.
The others were
9%
4%.
equity. So it's taxable bond financing. I'm not sure. I inherited this transaction from somebody else, so I'm not sure exactly why it was done this way, but It,
I can chime in a little bit. So this financing is done under our 9% permanent only product. It was a product that we rolled out last year as part of just diversifying our funding options for customers. And so oftentimes on 9% deals, the equity investor wants to be on both sides of the transaction, and they'll offer a higher equity in exchange for doing the construction financing. So this just allows CHFA to have an alternate product. So in cases where the construction lender is going to be done by a different entity, that we are still able to assist the customer by providing a long-term fixed rate option. And these 9% deals are great assets for CHFA because they're well capitalized. And in this case, we're talking about a very strong housing authority. And so again, these are low risk transactions for CHFA to put on its balance sheet and to be able to offer a fully amortizing fixed rate product.
Thank you. Kylie, did you have a question?
Oh, just a just a comment that while the expenses on this are extremely high, just noting that it is in accordance with the movement that Chfa has made on the QAP and the focus on development and higher opportunity areas. And so I think, well, it's critically important that we preserve units overall. It's especially important that we preserve them in high opportunity areas like this. There's several projects today we're talking about that fall in higher opportunity, moderate or higher opportunity areas. And so I just wanted to highlight that. In addition, the focus on the support, whether it's project-based vouchers or others for units under 50% AMI, is in accordance with where we know the need is based on various needs assessments in the state. And so again, really important to focus on those units, and those units are always a little more expensive. And in this case, they're buoyed by those project-based vouchers. But just want to note that I think there's some cases where projects are going to cost more, but where they're in alignment with the overall policy objectives and the shift that we've made in that, I think it's important to take that into consideration when we're looking at costs.
To that point, I'm curious about the role of the Architectural Review Board. And if any of the staff can add some color on that, that would be helpful. Did they offer any incentives sort of to go along with their heightened requirements in Greenwich?
not that I'm aware of. The Hay just wanted what they wanted the stone veneer and the pitch roofs to be at different varying heights. But not that I'm aware of that I don't think we got any incentives whatsoever.
And that's
Greenwich, that's what Greenwich
local
asks
committee?
for.
It's just what, I'm sorry, as far as what?
No, I'm curious, is that a local committee that's appointed by local government?
That I do not know if it's funded by local government, but it was part of the zoning process. It's been difficult in Greenwich, I will tell you. It's been difficult for them.
I would say Greenwich is one of the worst towns to get anything accomplished, and whatever they want is what they get. There's very little flexibility or wiggle room for developers because it's such a highly sought after location. Even though this is, housing that we're replacing.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, the only thing I would mention, this is Maura Hayden Walker's last mortgage committee. She's retiring from CHFA after 11 years of service. So I just want to make that recognition and just thank Maura for her service.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, Kylie seconded it. Shelley, you want to call the roll, please?
Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark,
Yes.
Heidi DeWinger,
Aye.
Kylie Goslin,
Aye.
Salem Mascara Bruno,
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugaldi,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is the resolution regarding financing for Deming Ridge, which is in Berlin, Connecticut. And I believe Elizabeth will present.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. The request is to approve tax exempt bond proceeds up to $14,625,000 to fund the construction of an 88 mixed income unit development in Berlin. The bond proceeds will be funded as a 24-month interest-only construction loan, converting to a 40-year, fully amortizing permanent loan. Excuse me. The development, known as Deming Ridge, will have a 30% affordable component consisting of 18 units at 50% AMI and 9 units at 60%. The remaining 61 units will be considered market rate workforce housing units. Now, workforce housing does not have a standard definition, and the town of Berlin uses the label to differentiate it from elderly housing and luxury housing. And Berlin's planning and zoning regs define it as a multifamily housing development that qualifies as an assisted housing development. It doesn't provide any particular restriction to the employment type or nature of the resident or define the amount of assisted living component. Please note the third paragraph on page 1 of the write-up under development summary. One change will have to be made to clarify the income restrictions. The write-up states that 61 units will be at 80 to 120% of AMI. That is incorrect. There will be no income restrictions on these units. They're not luxury units, so they do tend to attract tenants within the 80 to 120% AMI range. However, the town is not imposing income restrictions on these units, nor will Chfa. The affordability restrictions will relate only to the 27 units, and they will run for 40 years. The appraisal and the market study supported the need for additional housing units, particularly 1 and 2 bedroom units at the proposed rental rates. The development was considered to have above average amenities that should give the development a strong competitive advantage. It sits on 11.4 acres on a sloping hill in Berlin. It offers a nice rural feel with a location that's convenient to retail, commercial, and industrial. It's 0.6 miles from the Berlin Turnpike, within walking distance to the Eversource headquarters, and it's well located near a bus stop and numerous retail, grocery, restaurants, and other commercial and industrial properties. The developer is Metro Realty, and the principal, Jeffrey Sager, are well known to Chfa. Metro and its related entities currently have 16 properties in the Chfa portfolio. All are performing as agreed, well maintained, and within LIHTC compliance. There is also an identity of interest with this developer, and its related entities they're the syndicator, the sole LIHTC investor, the general contractor, and property manager. So these properties are motivated to ensure that the development is completed on time and within budget. The financing structure includes the tax exempt bonds. DOH is providing $3.7 million. The LIHTC equity is sold at a premium at $1.167 for every dollar of credit. There are energy rebates, a deferred developer fee, and total development costs are $23,357,308 or $265,423 a unit. The construction cost total $17,218,000, approximately $196,000 per unit, or $162 per gross square foot. The construction contingency is 5% of cost. The loan to value is approximately 80%. There are special conditions with this project. We are going to hold a letter of credit for the operating reserve, which will be eligible for a partial 20% reduction each year once the construction is complete and the project generates a minimum 1.15 debt coverage. So theoretically, the letter of credit could be fully released after 7 years. Now, after it's fully released, we will require reinstatement if the debt coverage falls below 1.15. We are also allowing 100% of the developer fee to be deferred. The strengths of the project: this will create 27 new affordable housing units. The developer has extensive experience in real estate construction and property management. Again, Metro and its related have 16 active developments in the Chfa portfolio. There are no delinquencies or outstanding issues with any of the projects. The developer also underwrote this project to remain fully sustainable for the full 20 or 40-year term. Debt coverage at stabilization is expected to be 1.23 times and remain above 1.15 throughout the next 40 years. The challenges right now with this are, of course, construction risks combined with COVID. There are potential supply chain issues. There could be a delayed receipt of construction materials, and there is potential for continued price increases. The subcontractors will not commit to pricing at this time. Mitigating that is the experience of this developer. The budget is based off recent pricing indications provided by the subs based on an expected construction start time of spring 2022. There is a construction contingency. And again, the developer and its related entities are highly motivated to ensure that the project is completed on time and within budget. Any questions?
Is that how they usually fund their reserves, is by using an LC, a letter of credit?
They have asked to do that because they want this to be the template going forward, and they do want cash to be available to start other projects as well. And if you probably recall, I wasn't here, but we used to have a different reserve that would burn off after 3 years. So this will have for 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just, utilizing or partially utilizing an LC is normally complicated. So it usually means there's an issue. And then whoever the bank who's issued the LC doesn't necessarily want to really, put up cash or, pay it out. So it's just, it makes it a little bit more complicated, but they seem to be a well run organization. They've done, all these projects. So it's just a little bit more complicated. Questions? None? All right. I know we're looking to do more mixed projects. This one, appears to be in a good location. Berlin's a nice town, so it looks like, it should be well thought of. All right, is there, Shelley, is there a motion to approve the loan?
I'll make that motion. And to that point, it's right by Eversource, and it's so close to the Berlin Turnpike. I mean, that's so close to working centers. I think that's partly why they want to push this forward. But I can make that motion or second it if somebody else just made it.
Okay, I think Lisa seconded it.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, any other comments, concerns, questions?
Something
Okay.
I'd like to note is that normally the 4% credit, which coupled with tax exempt bonds, is usually used for preservation type transactions. So this is unusual in that because of the alignment of all of these different entities of the developer and coming together to make this an efficient transaction, they've been able to do new construction, and we're getting 27 affordable units, and then a significant number of workforce housing units that technically would be sort of the moderate income renters that you don't normally see in a all light tech transactions. So it is unique, and we're happy to see this move forward.
This is Kylie. I just want to chime in and say kudos on the creative financing and the mixed income nature of this. I think the blend of affordable to workforce, or whatever you want to call it, mix here is great. And I love that it's a half mile from a bus stop. That's exactly what we want to be seeing in terms of really maximizing transit oriented development. And as Greg noted, access to possible jobs and retail and otherwise. So good location, good blend, good mix, high opportunity area, again, in alignment with the direction that we were, the QAP, I know, is nudging people. No, these are 4%, a 4% project. And again, a good use of those 4% credits, I think, in this case. So anyway.
All right, thank you. I think the definition of workforce housing, I did a project way back in Norwalk, and I think they had a pretty good definition. I don't remember what it is, but be interesting to see how they market this to attract the moderate, and I guess, price will be, but new housing would be attractive to a lot of people. So interesting that they're calling it, but they haven't defined it yet. All right. Shelley, should we call for the?
Cindy Betts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark,
Yes.
Heidi DeWinger,
Aye.
Kylie Goslin,
Yes.
Stella Mascaro Bruno,
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugaldi,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is the resolution regarding financing for Soundview Landing Phase 3, which is a Norwalk project, and Michelle will present.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chfa has been involved with Soundview Landing for quite some time now, so some of the members may be familiar with this project, but for those of you who are not, I'll give a brief summary. It was formerly called Washington Village, and it is part of a 3-phase redevelopment plan that replaces 136 units of public housing with a new 273 unit mixed income community, and that's in South Norwalk. It was the oldest public housing site in the state of Connecticut, and it experienced significant flooding during Superstorm Sandy in 2012. Phase 3 is the final phase of the project, and construction is complete. And it really took the participation of numerous partners on the federal and state level to get this project done. In addition to CHFA, partners included the Norwalk Housing Authority, the Norwalk Redevelopment Authority, DOH, and HUD as well. So CHFA underwrote the tax credits on Phase 1, and that phase was completed back in 2018. We then did our first hybrid transaction for Phase 2. We were the lender on both the 4% side and the 9% side. This phase was successfully completed in 2020. And for Phase 3, which is also a hybrid transaction, we are the lender on the 4% side. As I mentioned, construction is complete, but like many other developments that were being constructed during the pandemic, Trinity had to work through many of the issues that were directly caused by the pandemic. They managed, though, to keep the job going. They got it finished, and it's fully occupied. But they are faced with a gap on both the 4% side and the 9% side. In addition to the pandemic-related cost overruns, another factor contributing to the gap on the 4% side is the 4% tax credit rate, which dropped between the time we initial closed the transaction, the time the tax-exempt bonds were sold, and the placed in service date. So this lower rate reduces the amount of eligible credits, thereby reducing the tax credit equity. So that's contributed to the gap as well. In an effort to reduce these cost overruns, Trinity has negotiated some relief with their equity investor. And also there's a GMP contract associated with this development that requires some of the labor and material costs to be borne by the contractor. But despite these efforts, there still is a gap. So they approached CHFA for some relief. We've had several conversations with them, and being the lender on the 4% side, we agreed to take a look at the numbers and see if we could help. So the gap on the 4% side is approximately $709,000. The deferred fee is maxed out at $1,067,000, and that, based on our pro forma, will be paid in approximately 14 years. So what we're proposing is a $290,000 cash flow loan from the Community Investment Act, and that would be for a term of 30 years, which would be in line with our permanent note. And they would be expected, Trinity would be expected to make payments of 20% of available cash after the deferred developer fee is paid. The loan would have to be conditioned upon Trinity obtaining subordinations from other funders, and they'd need to get consents from their investor. And during recent conversations that I've had with Trinity, they really don't think that that'll be a problem.
So they have to come. So
Go
they
ahead,
have to
I'm
come
sorry.
up with 400,000 of additional subordinated or forgiven.
So they've come up, they've they've received additional energy rebates of 122,000. That's going to be going toward the gap, and then they're coming up with the rest between the tax credit, Redstone putting money up, not putting money up, but working with the adjuster so that so that will provide some relief. So 290 from CHFA.
Right, I see the chart, yep.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
don't
it,
fully
that's
appreciate I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Wendy, sorry.
I don't fully appreciate the repayment schedule. What's the likelihood of this being repaid in time in?
Well, I mean, based on the pro forma, the deferred developer fee will be paid in 14 years. So we would expect to be paid after that. We are in first position. So when the developer fee is paid, we would then be collecting the 20% of available cash before it falls into the waterfall for the rest of the partners.
Well, you're right to be skeptical, Wendy, because that's the cash flow loans, somehow the cash always seems to disappear into other buckets, but you're absolutely correct. But it is better than nothing. What else? Who else has comments, questions? Is there not a gap on the other side of the transaction?
There is a gap on the other side of the transaction. It's a little bit more. We are not the lender. They have approached DOH and we're helping with that analysis. They've approached DOH for some additional funding on that side. And we're working on an analysis.
So Sayla, what's your comment on that?
Thank you. Yes, so the project is a great project, a lot of things going on there. And again, I was doing the construction before the pandemic, and through the pandemic, I visited the site because they did a lot of flood mitigation also. So there are some legitimate costs. I do need to know the cost. We were waiting for the final cost certification, and CHFA is doing the analysis on our side because we provided soft commitment. And Chfa was not a lender, so the lender is a private bank. So the reason why we were asking for the final cost certification so that CHFA can do the
sweetie.
So we'll still, I don't know, Michelle, how far you guys are for our side, but there are considered two different projects. So that's the reason why the CHFA came to the board, to the committee for this part of the deal.
Right, but if you guys fail to come to some resolution on with the private financing, does it jeopardize the whole project? Is your answer no?
I think the ask is not really that big, and so I don't feel that we're not gonna come to a resolution, because it's actually just making sure that are the right expenses by they're claiming, and verifying so that we can, because we have public sources, so we need to make sure that we do due diligence. But I think it will be, we come to an agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the asks definitely aren't big, considering, these transactions were pretty significant. And they've, they've made a lot of effort to come up what they can. And then they didn't come to us until it was all over and said, now we could use a little help. So.
Right. Okay. Anybody else? Questions, concerns?
I do have a question. Is South Norwalk considered a high opportunity area? It is, right?
I don't know. Kylie, you're our expert.
Greg, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, just wondering, Kylie, how high, what preference do we put on a town like South Norwalk, say that area? Because we're getting 237 units in the end. I mean, this is a good area to be focused on, right?
I think so. I haven't looked up the opportunity rating for this. I don't know if it's in, we have it in the little chart that's at the bottom. But that would indicate, I looked up the Berlin one when we were talking about that, and it was a high opportunity, so an 8-point area. That kind of gives a sense from an opportunity standpoint, even, as to where it is. I don't know if Chfa folks have that at their fingertip, but that would be a good indicator.
I think it's interesting because I live probably a mile from this project, that they've done a lot of flood mitigation, but every time we have a nor'easter or high tide, Water Street still floods. So the good news
Oh,
is,
really?
oh yeah, I don't think the people who just move in realize how precarious that road is right there. I mean, there's really nothing they can do to stop it, I don't think, unless they build the road up. But the projects are above flood zone. There's just cars that could potentially get damaged because they have the parking underneath. But it is, most people, once they figure it out, they'll move their cars when it's a super high tide. But it's life down here. Anyway, any other comments? So we're really looking to approve the small loan, the Community Investment Act, 290,000. That's what we're voting on, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, thanks.
Second.
Lisa. Okay, Greg, second. All right, Shelley?
Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark,
Yes.
Heidi DeWinger,
Aye.
Kylie Goslin,
Yes.
Taylor Mascaro Bruno,
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugaldi,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the resolution regarding financing for Westbrook Village Phase 4, which is in Hartford. And Colette will present.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Again, this is for Westbrook Village Phase 4, located in Hartford. We are requesting approval for Affordable Housing Fund proceeds for construction to permanent mortgage loan in second position for an amount up to 1.59 million. It'll have a 2-year construction term, 30-year permanent term, simple interest on outstanding principal at a rate of up to 1%. Payments from 20% of cash flow. And this will go to Westbrook for Housing LLC, which is an entity formed by Penrose, who is the developer. This project is also known as Village at Park River Phase 4. It is an approved 2021 9% LIHTC transaction. This is part of the multi-phase revitalization of Westbrook Village. This is the previous public housing development owned, and it is owned by Housing Authority of the City of Hartford. This particular phase is 60 units. This is new construction, mixed income development comprised of 5 buildings. We have 24 1-bedroom units, 29 2-bedroom units, and 7 3-bedroom units. 12 units are designated as for supportive housing, and they will benefit from project-based vouchers from the City of Hartford. 12 units will be at 30% AMI, 24 units at 50% AMI or below, and 9 units will serve households at 60%. 15 of the units are designated at market rate. This was acquired as part of the 2003 acquisition of the state-sponsored housing portfolio. The City of Hartford has provided approval for a pilot agreement, and they are seeking additional financing from CHFA to cover a gap due to cost increases and a drop in LIHTC equity raise that developed after the initial 9% LIHTC reservation. Construction cost increases are largely attributable to material cost increases, labor shortages, and increased demand for certain materials. The developer was required to submit a proposal of items to value engineer to help reduce the size of the gap.
And the construction hard cost per unit is approximately $262,000. As I mentioned, Penrose is the developer, and they represent that they've developed more than 27,000 rental housing units through 16 states. They have worked on several LIHTC developments in Connecticut, including Meriden Commons Phase 1 and 2, which are completed, Torrington Riverfront, which is under construction, and then the previous phases of this development. This will be the first transaction for Penrose that includes CHFA financing. The cloud company is Penrose's local partner. They bring local and state expertise to the development team, particularly in the knowledge of local market, permitting processes, and neighborhood engagement. Haynes Construction Company will serve as the GC, and they have served as the GC on a number of CHFA projects in the past. Penrose Management Company is an affiliate of the developer, and they are the proposed management company. They specialize in managing federally assisted housing, including tax credit and Section 8 and public housing. And they have a portfolio of 130 properties with approximately 8,500 units. They currently manage a few CHFA LIHTC only properties, and they are currently in LIHTC compliance with no concerns noted. The architect, Wallace, Roberts, and Todd, they have provided architectural services for the developer on numerous CHFA projects in the past few years alone. And HUD debarment lists and DMV reports were reviewed and no concerns were noted. As we mentioned, this is located in Hartford, and it is in the Upper Albany and Blue Hills neighborhood. It's surrounded by the Magnet School, a church, and the University of Hartford campus. It's within a few miles of various amenities, including the library, the police department, pharmacy, bank, post office, schools, and St. Francis Hospital. They do have access to Union Station in downtown Hartford, and this is a transportation center that provides various modalities, including a regional stop for Amtrak and the CT Fast Track station. The financial structure of the project will include the CHFA subordinate financing. They are targeting a closing shortly after approval, so they're looking to February or March, and construction is expected to commence shortly thereafter. The TDC is approximately $22.5 million. The TDC per unit amount is approximately $375,000. And again, the hard cost per unit is approximately $262,000. The other sources include approximately $11.8 million in LIHTC equity. There are a permanent first mortgage loan from Massachusetts Housing Investment Corporation, and they will also have a DOH loan of approximately $3.9 million. There's a small GP loan as well as an FHLB loan, energy rebates, and deferred developer fee. As I mentioned, the city of Hartford has committed 12 project-based vouchers to the development. Columbus House will provide the supportive services for the 12 supportive housing units, and no residents will be displaced. This is new construction. The strengths of this project, again, this is the fourth phase of the revitalization of Westbrook Village, which was a former post-war 100% affordable housing project. The proposed site is within walking distance to a wide range of bus pickup and drop-off locations. And the project is designed to meet Passive House and EPA net zero ready standards. The development team has demonstrated their ability to execute projects in a timely manner. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are complete and 100% occupied. Phase 3 and the community building are under construction and are approximately 95% complete. With regards to challenges, as I mentioned, although experienced, the development team has not yet closed with CHFA financing before. Since this was the fourth phase of the development, the areas for cost containment have already really been identified. So it was difficult to reduce the size of the gap, focusing on value engineering items. Again, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to remain a challenge for developments. Mitigating factors for these challenges include the fact that the development team has worked with CHFA on several LIHTC only transactions in the past, and they have demonstrated their capacity and experience to close and have established a good working relationship with CHFA. To maintain the similar style and materials of the previous phases, some of the value engineering items will be treated as add alternates to be paid out of available construction contingency. The general contractor has adopted safety protocols to protect all workers and staff from COVID-19. Additional closing conditions include the execution of the HAP contract as well as the pilot agreement, and I can take any questions you may have.
So that last comment you made about alternative or sort of custom features, they have to then, if they want to change the design, they have to run it by us to determine whether or not there's funds available in the reserve. How does that work?
So they, there are certain, like granite for the countertops, which have been in the other phases. So those were value engineered out with materials that were less costly, but we would like them to be able to add those materials back in if the project allows. So as the project is progressing and if there's additional funds available in construction contingency, we would like to see them add a few of those items back in. So we've outlined those with the developer so that they can treat them as a alternate and get them back into the project.
With our approval.
Correct. Yeah, those are agreed upon items that we've gone through with the development team as we kind of try to reduce that size of the gap.
Okay.
I want to add one quick comment, if I may. This is the first transaction that we're coming to the board's approval for related to our being awarded the Capital Magnet Fund Award back in, I want to say early 21, which, if you recall, was a competitive process. Connecticut received its first ever award, and it was a $3 million award. And in order to become more competitive, we had, we basically said that we would match any award we received from the Capital Magnet Fund with our own Opportunity Fund dollars. And so in doing so, we received higher scores. We were awarded $3 million. We matched that with $3 million, and then we have a $6 million fund. The primary goal of the Capital Magnet Fund is to provide financing and other relief for areas of chronic economic distress. And so it's very specific. The program, has certain requirements that have to be met. And so finding developments that actually qualify for all of their requirements requires, a careful study of what the requirements are and what the development characteristics are. And so we're happy to have found, and to be able to put those dollars to work. And this is the first of a few developments that we're going to bring to you for your review and approval. So I just wanted to point that out there.
Great, thank you. Okay, more questions, comments?
Greg has his hand up. This is Lisa, but I also have a question I'd like to ask after Greg.
Yes, just curious. Penrose now, this is we've seen Torrington, now they're looking at Hartford, couple areas that we could really use the housing. What are their future plans? Are they looking at Connecticut as being one of their next states that they're going to start building up their portfolio?
I don't know if there's someone else on the call who has a kind of larger perspective, but yes, they've been real active with us the past few years. Again, mostly LIHTC only for CHFA. I know they've done several deals that have included DOH. So this is also a good trial for them to come to financing for us. Maybe in the future, they would consider that going forward.
They have a pretty good portfolio right now, Greg. In Hartford, they have been doing the redevelopment of the housing authority as well with Meriden. They have a bunch of units. So, and their idea is to keep producing more units here in Connecticut.
Okay, well, just speak out if you have a question, because I don't see hands being raised on my screen, so I apologize for that. Anybody else? Any
Yeah,
other?
Heidi, just a very small thing. In the text, insofar as I think it is significant, when we talk about Hartford Union Station, I think we don't want to forget that that's also a Connecticut rail hub, right? So the text called out the Amtrak connections, and that's fine. But what I think is also significant is the fact that this is on an internal Connecticut line, right, where people can commute internally. So just to, to call that out is something I hope we are paying attention to. You could potentially commute living here on the train to New Haven, right? So that's, I think, also exciting, and not Amtrak, because that's not affordable, but on CT rail.
Okay, good.
Just
All
as
right.
quickly, just noting, if you did live in this project, it would take you it's not like not a hop, skip, and a jump to Union Station if you're taking public transit.
Yeah, we didn't say how
Not right
far
next-
is it?
Not, I mean, it's in the same city as Union Station, but you have to drive down Albany and then cut through the city or go around, but you know, assuming you're taking public transit, it wouldn't be an easy commute to get to Hartford. Although yes, it is a transit, or there's CT Fast Track and other options in this space for transit. And just noting too that, again, as I always do, this is in Hartford, it's 40%, a city that has 40% deed restricted affordable housing. And this is a project that's already been approved. And this is just additional financing that it sounds like comes from a fund that requires that it be spent in areas like Hartford. So, but just always important to point out where we're concentrating units, where we already have a tremendous number of units versus other communities where we haven't done as much. So
That's a good point. Okay, anybody else?
Happy to make a change to the memo as well, based on Lisa's and Kylie's remarks about the options for transportation, or the proximity to other mass transit options.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Greg.
Second.
Okay, Wendy, thank you. All right, Shelley?
Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark,
Yes.
Heidi DeWinger,
Aye.
Kylie Goslin,
yes.
Salem Mascaro Bruno,
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugaldi,
Yes.
unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Next up is a review of the minutes of the mortgage committee from November 18th. I read them, they look fine to me. Are there any other comments, questions, changes? Okay, can I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a
the-
motion that we accept the minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, Lisa, thanks. All right, Shelley?
Cindy Butts,
Yes.
Wendy Clark,
Yes.
Heidi DeWinger,
Aye.
Kylie Goslin,
Yes.
Salem Mascaro Bruno,
Yes.
Lisa Tepper Bates,
Aye.
Greg Ugaldi,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Okay, next is the report on multifamily activities. Wendy?
Good afternoon, everyone. So the 9% tax credit applications were due on the 12th of January, and 15 applications have been received. 4 of those are in the new preservation classification, and the rest are in the new construction classification. And staff has begun initial reviews on those applications. As previously mentioned, CHFA offered taxable bond financing for developments that were planning to apply in the 9% round. And as a result, 5 developments were issued CHFA letters of interest. 2 of those have requested funding from the Opportunity Fund and 1 from the Affordable Housing Fund. There were 3 initial closings in December: Forest Court, which had been approved by the board in September; Edith Johnson Tower, which had been approved in October; and Clay Arsenal, which had been approved in November. And also an SSHP grant project had final closed in December. Back in mid-November, Connecticut's Affordable Housing Conference took place virtually. The DOH Commissioner Mascaro Bruno and Governor Lamont provided opening remarks on the first day of the conference, and Anthony provided remarks on the last day. We had CHFA staff Terry Nash, Deborah Alter, and Seema Milani all presented a session on the QAP. And this month, NCSHA held its HFA Institute, which is an annual conference. It was held virtually. The sessions covered the latest legislative policy and regulatory developments in the Section 8 program and the low-income housing tax credit program. So we had CHFA staff attend those sessions. Other items to note, Multifamily introduced improvements to our appraisal and market study process. We hosted a meeting on January 19th to unveil those changes, and the initial feedback from customers was positive. One of the changes is that applicants will pay for the reports up front when they submit an application. So that will allow us to order those reports earlier in the process. And also an underwriter will be assigned as soon as we receive an application or know that it's coming in, so that customers will have a contact immediately. DOH architectural and technical support staff and CHFA technical services staff will be convening later this month with customers and in a working group to look at their processes and come up with recommendations for process improvements. And then on January 11th, the IRS issued a fourth notice that further extends and expands temporary relief for housing credit agencies and owners related to COVID-19. And staff is currently working to update our website to reflect those most recent changes. We're happy to announce that the HACCP program funds have been fully dispersed and the program has closed. Over time, 280 applications were processed, with 1.6 million being provided to housing authorities for various funding programs and improvements. And then again, we have included the chart that has the deals that should be coming to the mortgage committee and board over the next few months. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
It's a huge number of applications. Well done. Going through all those. Thank you. Any questions for Wendy? Okay. Masuda, we were going to look at a single family progress report or update.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So
Anthony.
I will be happy to talk to Lisa Hensley, our new single family person, and provide an update. Maybe we can start doing something in a month or so.
That would be great.
Okay, no problem.
Madam Chair, the only thing I was going to mention is we have a new addition to the CHFA multifamily team. I'm pleased to let you know that Kelly McDermott, she was formerly the executive director of the Wallingford Housing Authority. She has joined us as the deputy managing director. This is her second week at CHFA, so I just want to take a minute to welcome Kelly to the multifamily team.
Great. Welcome. Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Any other comments? Any other business?
So just a quick comment on Kelly. Bob Wiedemann, who's on that board, says that we're getting a real gem here. So we look forward to it, Kelly.
I was so surprised at how many people Bob knew up here at CHFA, actually. So he gave me a real hard time. He goes, "Oh, I can't believe they took you from us." Bob's a great guy. That's so funny.
Okay, anybody else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
In a second.
Second.
Thank you. All right, all in favor of adjourning? Thank you very much, everyone.
Aye, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.